He's on the agenda today. Troy Elephant, am I saying? Ellison, sorry, I'm trying to read handwriting, but Ellison from Quail Forever. Laura McIver, of course, from Quail Forever, who has better attendance than most of us. James Deach from Quail Forever. Rick Grunman from our Oklahoma Wildlife Conservation Foundation. Philip Land from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Law Enforcement. Anthony Vowell from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and Matt Bryant from U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, J.D. This time I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes of previous meeting. Motion. Second. Discussion. There being none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Brewster. Aye. Commissioner Barwick. Aye. Commissioner Gaddis. Aye. Commissioner Dillingham. Aye. Commissioner Holder. Aye. Commissioner Mabry.
Aye. Next on the agenda, Director's Report, J.D. Strong.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Busy times. You'll notice Corey's not with us this morning because she is at the Capitol. They planned, Senate Ag and Wildlife Committee is meeting to consider confirmation of governor appointments, including this morning the new appointment for District 1, Jess Kane from Bartlesville. So he's up on the agenda today at 10 a.m. And so Corey and I are trying to juggle different responsibilities. On the federal side, you've got in your packet the monthly report from Brittany Preston, who keeps track of congressional federal stuff for us and helps us push agendas at the federal level. And so there's not a lot to report in there that deals with fish and wildlife related issues, other than, there are a lot of budget talks going on that will impact U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service grants we receive, that sort of thing, coming down the pike. There is a lot of talk about additional COVID-related relief in the form of infrastructure. So far, everything that's come out related to infrastructure has not encompassed fish and wildlife-related infrastructure, even though, to Commissioner Dillingham's question at the last month's meeting, we continue to provide information and job creation potential that would come from things like hatchery renovations and repairing roads and wildlife management areas and those sorts of things. And so we still have those things in the queue and are hopeful we'll get those through. The House now has reintroduced the Recovering America's Wildlife Act. Brittany continues to watch different infrastructure-related legislation, though, because the House slipped the Recovering America's Wildlife Act into the infrastructure bill last go around, and then it all fell through in the reconciliation process. So we'll see if we'll get that important piece of legislation through that we've been working on for a couple of years now, which of course would help us keep common species common, devote a significant amount of funding for a lot of those non-game species that we work hard to keep off the endangered species list, and that's really the goal of that particular act. So on the state legislative front, things are winding down. We're in the last month of the legislative session, and you'll see Corey's report there in your packet. I mentioned that they've got confirmation hearing in Senate committee this morning. The Senate will continue accepting or rejecting House amendments to Senate bills. There are no active wildlife bills in the Senate as of now. So during floor deadline week, there were a number of wildlife bills that went down. The House will continue accepting or rejecting Senate amendments to House bills in the coming weeks. There's only one active bill, that is House Bill 2214, which originally was the bill that we filed to seek commission authority over licensing and setting fees. It also had language in it that restricted the ability to buy land unless it's been marketed for at least 6 months. That was all paired together in this bill. Over on the Senate side, they essentially stripped out all the language and just put in there that our annual license will become 365-day licenses immediately with an emergency clause on the bill. And so we're kind of working with those authors to talk through some of the concerns we have with that taking place immediately, when that was kind of our goal of getting the authority over here and kind of putting the whole packages together to send back over there. But anyway, bear with us. We'll see. There's a few more weeks left, and we'll see what's going to happen on that front. There have been some bills that have made it across the finish line. A couple of those dealing with bills that were requested by DAs and the courts, just kind of electronic keeping of records on wildlife violations. So not a huge deal there. The wildlife diversity tax checkoff has to be reauthorized every 4 or 5 years. The governor did sign that, and so that is done. And then I think I mentioned maybe even at the last meeting, but the bill to remove squirrel season, the trapping, kind of archaic trapping regulations and that sort of stuff has gone past the governor. He has signed that into law as well. So Wildlife Division will be working on probably emergency rules, since that legislation or that law now takes effect in November. So we'll need some emergency rules in place to cover what squirrel season will look like, as well as a more modern trapping related regulation. So that's what's going on the state legislative front. Anything before I dive into calendar and what's happening at the department? Any questions federally or state? Excuse me. Okay, so on the state front, I always like to kind of put a calendar in that report so you can see what's happened and what's coming up that you may be interested in. Had a very successful Scholastic Shooting Sports state shoot. I'll cover that in a minute. Lieutenant Governor's Invitational Turkey Hunt was unsuccessful for some, like me, who missed bagging a turkey in the rain, but there were some successful folks, and it's always a successful event when it's all about economic development at the end of the day. I know I was at Okemah, and they had a great turnout and for that. We did have on Saturday our first Vamos a Pescar fishing clinic at South Lakes Park. So again, this is a grant that Communications and Education Division got for us to work with a local Hispanic-based group to put on and introduce Hispanic families to fishing. So, you know, it was a slow day as far as the fish bite goes, but there were several that caught their first fish, so it's always fun to watch them light up when that happens. This is Public Service Recognition Week, by the way, and I think Wednesday will be Public Service Recognition Day up at the Capitol, but always a good time to stop and thank all of our good public servants, including the best ones in government right here at Department of Wildlife, for their dedicated service to our sportsmen and sportswomen across the state. Don't forget, May 12th, we'll have our legislative fish fry. It'll be on the west lawn of the state capitol where we typically have that. So let us know if you're interested in that. We can help make arrangements. A couple of additional fishing clinics coming up. We do have several commissioners and foundation board members that have RSVP'd for the May 20th evening in Stillwater. We're going to do some kind of coordination on research that we do with Department of Ag Science and Natural Resource there at OSU. Also maybe enjoy a night at the new baseball field while we're there. So if you're there, we'll probably run into you while we're there as well. So this year we're going to have a kind of a bigger, making a bigger deal all the time of really what the new game wardens go through as far as new training academy. They're in the second year of that going on right now, and planning to have a pinning ceremony May 25th here at headquarters. So I know several of us will be involved in that, but any of these things you're interested in, you just let us know. May 27th will be the Commission Budget and Finance Committee meeting here at headquarters. And so those that are on that committee will meet, go through the draft budget proposal and have some opportunity to work with staff to see what we want to bring in a final budget proposal to the June commission meeting, and legislature adjourns sine die on May 28th. Already did kind of a legislative overview. In addition to what's happening across the street, there have been a number of legislators that have gone out and done some paddlefish snagging with us. I know there'll be some going out this week to learn how to jug line for catfish on call and some other things. So all in an attempt to catch enough catfish for that fish fry on May 12th at the Capitol. So we'll see how good they are. On the human dimension sides of things, lots of things being surveyed. Of note, private land survey was sent out to almost 10,000 private landowners across Oklahoma. So we'll be compiling the results of that over the summer, and be sure to provide commissioners a copy of the results of that. But the idea for that is to assist our private lands crews as we go out and try to help private landowners improve the wildlife and fisheries habitat on their property. How can we best serve them? Lots of fish stocking continuing to happen in Fisheries Division. The Paddlefish Center is in full operation, of course. This is the peak time of year for people bringing in their paddlefish for us to process, and then, of course, for us to make that caviar. Lots of other things that I will let you read at your leisure going on in Fisheries Division. I mentioned earlier the Scholastic Shooting Sports Competition was a great success. I was able to break away and get out there and see some of the competition going on. Amazing shooters as usual. The striking thing was how much the coaches and parents praised us for continuing to host that event and including doing it again this year after, COVID has shut so many things down. So it was a little bit, I think, smaller in terms of the number of schools that were invited to the state shoot than usual, but still plenty, still a good crowd, still a really amazing sustained wind of about 35 miles an hour as they threw clay targets right into that wind, and those, of course, went all over the place as soon as they left the throwing house. But I did sit there for a minute, more than a minute. I was so amazed, and watched the leading, or the female shooter winner in the senior division, Bregan Barnett from Merritt Schools, in that wind with clays darting around, cracked 24 out of 25. And so some amazing shooters out there. So you can see in your packet there the brackets and who ended up winning at the end of the day. A good mix of schools that fared well in the competition, from everywhere from the Panhandle to southeast Oklahoma, and in Representative Dempsey's district as well. So lots of great schools represented there, and it's always fun for us to put it on. Also, Senator Burns and Senator Stevens were able to make it out and join us as well. So you see there in your packet some of their social media posts from the event, from their schools being there. Also in the C&E division, you'll see some great upcoming Outdoor Oklahoma TV features that we filmed with the Hubbards, who host and produce Urban American Outdoors TV. They were able to come down and do some paddlefish snagging with staff. Before I leave it on the Scholastic Shooting Sports Competition, I just wanted to point out the number of staff coming from all the different divisions that really help make that a great success every year. So thank you to all the other divisions that roll out to help pull that competition and many others off. So back to the Hubbards. Look forward to a future Outdoor Oklahoma featuring them. Wayne Hubbard, in addition to the TV show that they've had since 2003 with numerous awards, they're really all about getting youth outdoors and that sort of thing, and then diverse communities out. And so that was fun for our folks, I know. Daniel Griffith, our webmaster, reports that, he's usually back there helping us running the live stream, but he reports that this first quarter of 2021 was the biggest quarter ever in the history of the website in terms of people visiting. We saw huge spikes during COVID as well, but it's sustaining and still going strong. We had over 3.3 million views over the 3 months, January, February, March of this year, and the previous high was quarter one of 1.8 million views. So you can see how we're really blowing it out on web visits and trying to serve up the kind of content that folks really need. Wildlife Division, the technical assistance visits are picking up. People are coming out of their COVID shell and calling for staff to come out and help with technical assistance and that sort of thing. So more and more of that happening. Everybody's reporting. The month of April on the wildlife management areas is largely servicing turkeys and turkey hunters and that sort of thing. So all reports are turkey hunters are out in greater numbers than ever before, and in some cases they're finding much fewer turkeys than ever before. So a lot more turkey hunters out there, but in some cases a lot more frustrated turkey hunters out there. And of course we'll talk more at the June meeting about some additional steps that we may want to take to try to do what we can about that. Personnel continue to work on the dashboard components of those WMA plans that we talked about last time too, in terms of implementing the strategic plan and so forth. Just as the Paddlefish Research Center is cranked up in full swing, law enforcement's cranked up in full swing on paddlefish enforcement. It's been a busy year for that. Lots of good cases made, including one with over 60 pounds of caviar they were trying to smuggle out of the state. So I know law enforcement's been busy on that. District 7 had a special emphasis on opening day of turkey out at Black Kettle. I went out there and rode along with them for the afternoon and evening of that. Lots of hunters, lots of out-of-state hunters. We encountered more out-of-state hunters than we did in-state hunters out there. Encountered a lot more hunters than we did turkeys while we were out there, unfortunately, but some were harvesting and checking in. But we checked people from Minnesota, North Carolina, Ohio, Mississippi got a ticket actually for hunting too late. Louisiana, Missouri, Colorado. I mean, there were people from everywhere hunting out there. So good testament to what those wildlife management areas bring in. The hotels have been booked all season at Cheyenne, and people filling the restaurants and everything else. So great for economic development. And with that, Game Warden Academy is in full swing right now as well, and it'll end with the pinning ceremony that I mentioned earlier. But I know the new recruits are getting run through the ringer, learning all they can about laws, regulations, and tracking and different scenarios and how to handle them and all that kind of stuff. So looks like what will be a really good crop of 5 new game wardens going through the academy right now. So be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, JD. The turkey numbers are down. I've hunted several years for them, and our numbers are drastically down in southwest Oklahoma, and I think other places also. In fact, I read an article that the state of Missouri turkey numbers are drastically down. They're kind of faced with the same problem that we have. Lack of turkeys. We don't have anything solved yet, but we're sort of working on that. And thanks, you guys. Any other questions, comments? Next, moving on to the next item is the presentation of the financial statement by Amanda Stork. Amanda.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Mr. Strong. I have today for you the March 31st, 2021 financial statements. Our first report is the combined balance sheet for all fund types for March 31st, 2021. Our liabilities and fund balance is $482,896,492. Our total liabilities, $20,674,989. Our fund balance is $154,265,143, and that's compared to last year, $400,715,884. Our next report is for trust funds balance as of March 31st, 2021. Our expendable trust fund balance is $35,460,892. Our non-expendable trust fund balance is $95,792,793. Our pension trust is $136,200,688. Our DC trust is $5,237,652 for a total of $272,692,025. compared to last year of $208,635,839. This is our combined statement of revenues, expenditures, and change in fund balance. For March 31st, 2021, our total revenues is $41,459,911. Our total expenditures are $39,722,892 for a balance of an over of $1,737,019. So our total fund balance as of March 31st is $58,472,350. Sorry, that report looks like wide and
Got
smart.
stretched out.
And I'm like, something is not looking like mine. Sorry. Okay, so the combined statement of revenue, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the trust funds. You can see on this report that our interest and investment income is $20,300,873. We are still seeing fluctuations in that fund. January, we had an increase of $1.2 million. February, we had $1.6 million. And then March, it dipped back down to $570,000. So still a lot of fluctuations in that fund. So our total operating revenues for March 31st is $28,636,133. Our operating expenses for the trust fund, $6,530,564, and our operating income is $22,105,569. Our contributions report for March 2021 is a total of $6,790. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Oh. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I'll have to.
Yeah, that was a campaign. Micah, do you know that C&E ran? That's what I was thinking, a couple of months long.
I do have license report if you would like to hear that.
Yes.
So residents, so we are a little bit down over last year. If you remember, this time last year was the ramp up of COVID, so we'll be watching that. Our number of total licenses sold is down 6.7% for April, but still up 4% year to date. So our resident fishing is down 32%, resident hunting is down 28%, resident combo is down 24%, but then our non-residents are up 19% and up 56%. So we're offsetting our resident sales with non-resident sales. Our lifetimes are up 19%, and all sales revenue was down just about 1% for the month, but it's still up 11% year to date.
Okay. It's kind of the opposite of what we saw April of last year. Residents were spiking and non-residents were in the tank because nobody was traveling. So it sounds like we've kind of flipped it for this April.
Yep.
Be interesting to see May. That was our biggest month last year. May and June both, we doubled.
Any questions? Motion and second? Second discussion? There being none, roll call, please.
Commissioner Brewster. Aye. Commissioner Barwick. Aye. Commissioner Gaddis. Aye. Commissioner Dillingham. Aye. Commissioner Holder. Aye. Commissioner Mabry.
Aye. Next item on the agenda is a presentation of a certificate of appreciation to 3 District 5 game wardens. Call on Nathan Erdman and Philip Land with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Gentlemen.
Chairman, Commissioners, Director, I'm proud to have Philip Land. He's a special agent in charge for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Law Enforcement Branch. His territory is Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. So he's got quite the territory to cover. We also have the new resident area agent over there was Matt Bryant, which used to be the Oklahoma agent. He recently was promoted to the supervisor position for North Texas and Oklahoma. So I'll let Philip come up and talk in just a second. I just want to give you a little background on Philip. Phil is actually an Ardmore, Oklahoma boy. He grew up in Ardmore, went to school at OU, correct? So don't be hating on him, JD. He actually told me this morning that he interviewed or took the test to be an Oklahoma game warden back in the early 90s and didn't ever get called in for an interview. So I'm glad he's put that all behind him, and he's a very good asset for us, and we have great cooperation between the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, law enforcement agents, and our game wardens. So, Philip, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Nate. Well, yeah, good morning, and thanks for everybody for having me, JD and everybody on the commission. I just real quick, Southern Oklahoma boy, grew up here, coming back over. I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Been over there for about 9 years. Been a federal agent for about 26 years, and it's always get back to the great state of Oklahoma. So for sure. And then as Nate mentioned, supervised the 4 states. Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Arizona. Have a staff of about 52. About 22 special agents in those 4 states, and we cover 80% of the southwest border. Very active, very busy, but I'm very thankful for Nate, JD, and the whole state with the game wardens that help us protect our conservation in the great state of Oklahoma, because we could not do it without them. It's challenging times as we move forward with wildlife trafficking is really big, not only in Oklahoma, but everywhere. And we mentioned, even JD mentioned the paddlefish earlier in his comments. So, but the reason I'm here today is one of our agents is Matt Bryant was traveling on February 20th, coming up, actually going to work an investigation, a trafficking case dealing with elephant ivory tusk out of Elk City that we were working on. And actually, an Oklahoma City PD officer had an informant that called one of the game wardens, which called our agent, Tony, over there up in Tulsa, and started working the case. So in order to try to figure out, the undercover part of the case, Matt traveled up, and during that time, he encountered himself, a medical emergency, and down by the Sulphur area as he's driving up from Dallas, Fort Worth area. He reached out to one of the local game wardens, Ty, that stepped in, immediately assisted, responded, evaluated the situation for Matt, and know he's experiencing something that he hadn't experienced before, and helped him get to the hospital. And then Casey, Lieutenant Casey, showed up and helped out, and got him over to the hospital, got him evaluated, got him checked out, and even moved his vehicle over there as well. And about that same time, this was going on, as you can on a Saturday, I think it's Saturday evening. I called Nate right away, and Nate's always there for me, and told him what was going on, and so the guys were responding and helping out. And they stayed, and all 3, Jalen as well. I think Jalen Flynn's not here today, but Jalen responded as well. All 3 of them helped out. Wait till his family got there, and even Casey took the vehicle home for us and secured the vehicle for that evening until the agents could come up there and get it. And just know that we have partners in arms and able to call and make that call no matter what situation it is. If medical, life-threatening, and we're there for each other, which means a lot. So I truly am thankful for Nate and his team and JD. Just want you to know that from my perspective, and very fortunate that evening that they were there for Matt. And that's why I'm here. I've got 3 letters of presentations I want to give out, along with challenge coins to all 3 of them. And I guess I'd call, and just a little bit more before I do that, a little bit more about this case. So we wound up actually taking the 2 subjects down in Tyler, Texas. So they went across, they brought the elephant tusk, they negotiated, so it's a combination between Texas Parks and Wildlife, game wardens, us, and Nate and his team, but we wound up taking them down in Tyler, Texas on a buy bus situation. That means they brought the merchandise to us. We had an undercover Texas Parks and Wildlife game warden with one of our special agents, and they sold it to us for $12,000, and we took them down in the parking lot. Firearms drawn. One guy got kind of hinky on us where he could have took off, but he decided not to. I think there was too many firearms and, tactical advantage of the situation. So thankfully, everybody come out of that situation safe, and now they're facing federal charges in the, I think it's Eastern District of Texas in Tyler, Texas. So I think it's worked out well.
Good work.
So. Thank you, Matt. Ty, you come up. Game warden Ty Runyon. This is a certificate of appreciation for Office of Law Enforcement, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Game warden Ty Runyon, Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. It is my honor to present to you this certificate of appreciation for assisting Special Agent Matthew Bryant due to a medical emergency and for supporting the mission of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Office of Law Enforcement. Thank you, sir. Lieutenant Casey Young. Again, certificate of appreciation, Office of Law Enforcement, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Game warden Lieutenant Casey Young, Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. It is my honor to present to you this certificate of appreciation for assisting Special Agent Matthew Bryant due to a medical emergency for supporting the mission of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Office of Law Enforcement. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
For you. It's kind of unrelated. Thanks for making those presentations. We appreciate you coming over here. I noticed on the limited coverage at the border that U.S. Fish and Wildlife trucks were loading up border crossers. How much time are your agents down there spending on the border crisis?
Oh, very good question. So with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Office of Law Enforcement, our special agents or criminal investigators. So we have, for instance, we have an agent in Rio Rico, Arizona, down on the southern Arizona border. We have one in El Paso, Texas, one in McAllen, Texas, stationed throughout. And then another division that we do have is called Division of Refuge Law Enforcement. So those are uniformed conservation federal wildlife officers in uniform working down there on the border, in those refuges. Of course, there are, a lot of illegal drugs, narcotics coming through that southern border. They do seize a lot. Those federal wildlife officers in our Division of Refuge Law Enforcement, they work with U.S. Border Patrol, they work with U.S. Customs. They do encounter a lot of different things down there on the border. As far as the special agents I supervise, we're looking at drug trafficking, wildlife trafficking associated with drug trafficking. Firearms trafficking, drug trafficking, wildlife trafficking, they all go together depending on what's coming across the border. We're always looking for those. Our priorities is, the CITES, Convention on International Trade, Endangered Species, anything of high value targets that are traded for wildlife that's coming across that border. But many times we do search warrants with Homeland Security, HSI agents, FBI. We get referrals of such and things like that for species coming across the border. But we're very active, very busy. Of course, with the crisis stuff that's going on down there on the border, we're not necessarily our agents involved in that right now. But the federal wildlife officers, just like any other officer down there, they'll see a lot of activity for sure.
there, and I was just wondering if they were kind of commandeering your staff to help out on unrelated things that you normally don't do.
No, we haven't, no, not for the special agents themselves, no, we try to prioritize the conservation, prioritize our priorities, which is wildlife trafficking and the endangered species and, protecting, we used to, years ago, when I come on with the Fish and Wildlife, it was in the Northwest, we still do a lot of the migratory birds and the enforcement, but now it's becoming this whole global scale of wildlife trafficking, not only domestic, but international. And, a lot of folks don't know, we have what we call country attaches, so we have agents stationed across the world now, in Africa, in China, in Mexico. So we're, the premier law enforcement conservation agency in the United States, we have agents stationed across the world like FBI, DEA, and so we're tackling it from not domestic, but international. And Matt, we know a lot of money's being made. Just for instance, the Ivory case we just did, it was $12,000. We had $12,000 out there on the street that day, and they were selling 2 elephant ivory tusks. So,
Owner that was burglarized, or?
I think they're still held in evidence, Matt, or?
Still held in evidence,
Yeah.
waiting for trial, but that's the
Yeah.
potential plan.
Yeah.
Thanks for your service, we appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Nate, and thank you, Philip, for that certificate of appreciation, and also thanks to the game wardens, your involvement in this case and successful conclusion. So we appreciate that, and all the other game wardens in the state of Oklahoma. You guys have put your life on the line like any other officer, so thank you for your service. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is a presentation of the successful completion of the shooting range with a joint project with Oklahoma Panhandle State University and Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. At this time, I'd ask Lance Meek to come forward, as well as Dr. Tim Fulton.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about the project real briefly first. Dr. Fulton's here to really tell us about the project, but I'll just tell you from the agency standpoint, this was a $2.4 million project. You guys have been in the sporting goods store recently, right? You've gone and looked for ammo, right? There's no ammo. Everybody here knows how we're funded. And, probably for the last 10 years, we've had excess funding. And about 7 years ago, we started on a project of, well, if shooters are spending money and maxing out our Fish and Wildlife Service reimbursement money, then let's give something back to shooters. So we've been renovating Wildlife Department gun ranges. A lot of you know that. And I don't exactly remember how we got onto each other, but I got a call. I think I got a call from Dr. Fulton, and he was interested in building a gun range out there. This is the first of this type of grant in our Wildlife Service region, where we work with another agency. It's called a pass-through grant. We work with another agency. And I'll tell you what, if somebody comes to me today and says, hey, Lance, I'm interested in, we want to work on a gun range. We heard you had a lot of money that's earmarked for this type of thing. We want to work with you. I now say, throughout this process, I'm going to tell you everything I know about this, but throughout this process, there are going to be surprises, things we didn't see coming, things I didn't see coming, things the Fish and Wildlife Service didn't even see coming. I didn't say that to Dr. Fulton until a few months later when we found out that was going to be the case. So they've really done a great job of rolling with the punches. I'll say something real quick. You can look on Dr. Fulton's, on OPSU website and read about Dr. Fulton. #1 fundraiser they've ever had, the highest graduation rates they've ever had, the highest student recruitment rates they've ever had. I have the pleasure of knowing Dr. Fulton personally, and I'll tell you, I don't know anyone who is as educated and smart as this guy who you can have a normal conversation with. He's very down to earth. When I called him on Saturday, he was on the back of the horse, took my call on the back of a horse, and I'm not going to say he outshot me when we came out to visit. but I'll leave that to him. But it's been a great pleasure. Dr. Timothy Fulton from the Oklahoma Panhandle State University.
Thank you, Lance. It's always good to have you in the Panhandle, and next time you come back, we'd love to host you, no problem. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Director Strong. I am honored to be with you today. I've got a lot of ground to cover, got a lot of pictures to show you. We brought you some things. I'm somebody who believes that you want to be front of mind for everybody. So we've brought you everything from formal attire wear to a hat to a lapel pin. There we go. Commissioner Strong's with the program. Thank you very much. So, yeah. So what I'd like to do today, if it's all right, is I'd like to give you a tour of the facility through a video we made when we did our opening. We did our soft opening last year about 3 weeks prior to COVID breaking open. We drew a beautiful weather day, and we were very excited about that. But this will give you an idea of what the ranges look like and sort of how everything lays out. And then what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about the financials, our operational hours, and our usage. There's our front gate. As you come in, a lot of people think that the Panhandle is just flat and boring and nothing to see out there. It is beautiful. And on the horizon, as far as you can see, are windmills. And I don't know how you feel about windmills, but the way this sets up and how the scape works is just absolutely beautiful. And so after that, I want to talk about the Groendyke Wildlife Center. Got some very good news there. And then we'll talk about some college information if we have any time going forward. I'd like this to be a conversation if at all possible, so please feel free to stop me at any point here. And so Don has worked very hard on making our video and our presentation work, and so special thanks to him. I think he's got everything going for us. If we can roll the video, I think you guys will be impressed. While he's pulling up the PowerPoint presentation, I think it might be interesting for you to know that we have one of the largest college and university ranches in America. So we've got about 12 sections, which is about 12 square miles. And so we broke off 90 acres to make this particular facility. And so it's amazing. We have we have a great partnership with Oklahoma State University, with our Oklahoma Panhandle Research and Extension Center. And so it's amazing to go through where we have about 4,000 we have about 4,000 different crop rotations and experiment stations going on at one time, and drive literally less than half a mile to one of what everybody considers to be a world-class shooting facility and shooting sports complex. And so to have those kinds of resources, one of the things that Lance talked about, and I'll talk to you about later, is that we're the fastest growing university in our region for the last 4 years. We're the only ones growing in Oklahoma at the undergraduate level. And the thing that has made us successful is we stopped trying to be everything to everybody, and we started being really good at what we're really good at. We focused on who we serve, and then we started giving people reasons to choose us and support us. This program and this facility that you helped us build essentially avails us to about 300 students that otherwise never would have considered attending Oklahoma Panhandle State University. Now they can come to a world-class agriculturally based research university that helps them achieve their dreams, and they can do the activities without any judgment, without any issues whatsoever as they come through. And so that's what it means to be good at what you're really good at. And so for us, what this means as an institution is it does help us to attract students, but it's also done so much for us in terms of our community involvement and those sorts of things. So let's see if I can make this deal work. Our shooting facilities are this. So we have a 100 and 200 yard rifle range. We have a 50 and 25 yard pistol range, which all of the area, so please bear in mind at Oklahoma Panhandle State, we are closer to 4 other states than we are to mainland Oklahoma. We all refer to you as downstaters. And so what we do is we provide free of charge to all the law enforcement agencies our pistol range for all of their qualifying and those sorts of things there. One of the things that wasn't covered in the grant, but the university went ahead and covered, was a long-distance rifle range. We have targets at 500, 750, 1,000 yards, and 1,250 now, because 1,000, I guess, wasn't far enough for some of those guys. And so, but that is the most used range that we have at this point. There are a lot of people who like to hit things the size of a quarter at 1,000 yards. Now, I want to tell a story that's very important for you all to remember, because I have very few claims to fame in my life, but I'm the first one to hit a 1,000-yard target at our range on opening day. It was awesome. We brought out the number 4 shooter in America, and he was doing this demonstration, and he was excited about hitting the target for the first time without, and he had his wind thing and all these, and he's down on the ground, and he's about to shoot the target, and he looks at me, and he goes, "You want to do it?" And I said, No, it's okay. And he goes, "It's really pretty simple. Come here." So I lay down. He's got everything set up, got the windage, everything is perfect. I lay down, and he goes, "Can you see the target?" And I said, "I think so." He goes, "Pull the trigger." I pulled the trigger, the light comes on. I hit a 1,000-yard target. He did all the work, and I was the one who got to claim all the glory there. They literally have weekly shoots out there where they come out. An interesting thing that I think most people would find interesting about this, we have the second sort of highest usage rate is through our FFA and 4-H programs. And the third one are the cowboy fast draw shooters. They come from hundreds and thousands of miles away because they want to have a place that is accepting of them and lets them use the range the way they want to do it. I really thought it would be hunters. So I'm a lifetime hunter. I'm 5th, 6th generation of a hunting family. I really thought it would be hunters. They actually rank 8th in terms of the classification of usage. And so there are a lot of people in terms of safe and responsible gun ownership who are using it. The thing that I would say to you is every one of those 4-H and FFA kids and every one of those long-distance shooters and even the cowboy shooters, they all hunt. They all buy licenses. This is as much about the ambassadorship of our way of life as it is anything else. So as you can see, we do trap and skeet, sporting clays, 5-stands, 3D archery, and Olympic archery. Not a lot of Olympic archers in the Panhandle, but we are ready and set up for them when they come. Our collegiate usage, these are all of the universities. Now, bear in mind, we're coming off a COVID year. If you invite me back next year, I'm going to have 7 pages of the colleges and universities who come and use our range there. But even in a COVID year, they would call and say, "Are you guys open? Can you come and do it?" And we just sort of with a wink and a nod, and they showed up and were able to use the facility this way. There's our college shooting team. And if you'll notice here on the left-hand side of your screen, that's Jordan Freeman, our head coach, Oklahoma State University graduate, shot on their team there. originally from Texoma, and she's doing a great job for us. I'll show you this, maybe. There we go. So everybody loves the barrel stickers. They wanted to get a picture of that. So David Byers is one of our excellent shooters. He came to us from 7 states away because when we showed him the facility, he thought this was the place he needed to be. This is my favorite story so far of all of this. This is Tyron Rose. Tyron Rose went to the ACUI Championships, which is San Antonio, the national championships for collegiate shooting sports. Graduated from Goodwill High School, shot in 4-H and FFA there, got on a run down there in San Antonio, and he's now a national champion in American trap and never would have had the opportunity if we didn't have this particular facility. Isn't that amazing? And so there I am shooting with them. I would like somebody, you also saw it in the video, one day I'm going to get, I don't know, I'm going to, I'll retire or I'll get fired or put in the Hall of Fame or something. I want somebody to do something in terms of a slide presentation of all the embarrassing things that I've had to do throughout my career, right? So kissing pigs, pies in the face. We added one on opening day. We sold the opportunity to shoot the first round of trap there at the facility. And so the man that bought it was a man out of Enid. And we do this big ceremony, and we cut the ribbon, and everybody's excited. And there's probably 100, 125 people standing there. And it turns out that he's like the international champion of everything ever known to trap. And I'm like, great, right? So I'm out there. I'd never shot trap before. And we get away from the crowd. He goes, okay, so you want it to be $100 a clay or $25 a clay? And I said, well, I could just give you the money rather than actually betting like this. And he said, well, here we go. So we work out a deal where he spots me, and we've got this game of wolf and all of these other things. And I said, so here's the deal. I'll pay you whatever I do if I lose. Otherwise, you got to put $1,000 in the scholarship fund for this. So we go through in front of everybody. He spots me so many clays, and I'll be danged at the end of it, the scholarship fund got $1,000. And so we were really, really excited about that. But I try to go out and shoot with the team whenever I'm in town. And the most amazing thing about these young people, you saw a picture of the men's team, but the women's team even more so, is how much they root for each other and help each other. I'm amazed at how many people will work so hard to help you beat them in the competition. And that's just the brand of human that we're talking about there. So here's our community usage. Weekly, twice a week actually, we Goodwill, Guyman, and Hooker FFA and the No Man's Land and Rifle and Pistol Club come out. You can see some of the images there. When you come out for the FFA shoots, we've hosted 3 or 4 regional shoots and 6 shoots from other states so far. And so when you come out to that, it is encouraging to see how many young people are actually using the facility as we go through. I believe that's the Goodwill team right there, and I believe that's their coach, and I believe that's a staged picture where I'm clearly giving them a speech. This is the No Man's Land Gun Club, and they come out every week, and they're just a great group of guys, and they could not be any happier. So there I'm shooting a World War II Garand with open sights, and I'm pretty excited about that. As you can see, we had the governor out to the shooting range, and all of that worked really well. And so he and I shot that rifle there. He also hit a 1,000-yard target. Took him 2 shots, but I'm not counting these things. What we're going to start, I believe, this year, if we can get the Grondike facility underway, is we're going to start an annual or maybe 2 annual pheasant hunts. The pheasant population is doing real well in the Panhandle, as well as quail hunting. And so these are members of our board that came out, and you see Wade Free right there. I said Wade, but Wade, excuse me, Free. And so we had that as an opening fundraiser. And on that day, then Commissioner Grondike and Director Strong came out for the actual banquet portion of that. We raised $17,000, which in the Panhandle is quite an event. So we're really, really excited about that. Let me get into some of the financials. I've got some notes here that I'd like to share with you. First, the investment by the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Commission has been $1.8 million in this facility. OPSU's match was a little over $600,000 for $2.4 million as for the total of the facility up to this point. Something that's interesting that I think all of you will appreciate is one of the things, I've been at this a while, 27th year in the system, my 12th year as a president. Building things are great. Maintaining things are the hard part. And so one of the things in the menu that I use when we're out raising money for this particular facility was an endowment that would go to the maintenance of this facility for the life of the facility. And so far, we've raised $115,000, which will be matched with a legacy gift at some point, which will get us up to $250,000, which avails us to about somewhere between $35,000 and $50,000 a year for maintenance and upkeep of the facility. And so that's a real important part of it, that thanks to the generosity of several individuals, we'll be able to take care of there. Our fees that I thought you might find interesting, I didn't want to put these on a slide, but our fees at this point are $6 for the rifle ranges, $10 for a family, same way for the pistol range. Our trap and skeet fees are 35 cents a clay, and it works out to be about $8.75 a round. The sporting clays is 35 cents a clay, and that's about $12 a round. The 3D archery is $8 for an individual, and the Olympic archery is $8 for an individual. We also have family rates of $12 and $10. So as you can see, we're trying to keep this as affordable as possible. One of the neat things, we've got a temporary clubhouse, is there's a jar there, and people will put money in that jar for anybody who doesn't have enough to shoot, so that they can take money out of the jar. That was actually a community member's idea, so they pay it forward to make sure that anybody who wants to come out can actually do something like that. This is the redesigned version of the building. It's the only thing missing from completing the facility. This will be called the Groendyke Wildlife Center. We had a very generous lead gift of a little over $500,000. It's a $1.1 million facility. You can see how that works. We switched architects from the planning phase into this phase and started working with Beck Design, who are the people who designed this building and are close friends and longtime friends with the Groendyke family. And so they've come on, and so we're looking at redesigning it to be this type of a facility because it fits in well. We believe it'll weather out in the Panhandle pretty well that way. This is the floor plan. As you can see, we're set up to host large events, small events, educational events, and then there will be other things like a pro shop, locker rooms, those sorts of things as you go through this. We will move, so there is the estimated cost of this. There's what we've raised up to this point. So we're 56% toward our goal. Honestly, I anticipated we would be done at this point, but COVID's impacted a lot of things, but raising money in a COVID environment, if there's somebody who figured out how to do it, I'd like to talk to them because it was really, really difficult. So we're looking forward to things opening back up and getting back out to see people there. We're essentially $500,000 away, and then I believe our facility gets compared to the Whittington Center all the time, and I believe when we get this particular part of the facility set up, I think we're going to be amongst the best in America. And we're really, really proud of it. I would encourage you, as it works, maybe around a hunting season, we would love to host you out at the Panhandle at the university. And we'd love to host your meeting, and we'd love for you to see it, particularly to interact with some of the students and some of those people that we have there. All of this was made possible through you all, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and the Wildlife Restoration Center. The last thing that I would say related to this particular project is I get tagged all the time as being sort of a leader who thinks outside the box and those sorts of things. What we have to do is we have to meet people where they are and get them where they want to go. There's a segment of our population that is missing education about safe and responsible gun ownership. If you think about higher ed in general, there are a lot of people that believe that guns are bad, that guns should be banned. And I am proud, and almost everybody I work with, I should say, believes that we want to be a national example for safe and responsible gun ownership. And you and your leadership and your generosity made that possible. And I can't thank you enough for that. If I can turn your attention to this, you are going to see something before my Board of Regents actually sees it. I'll take about a minute to actually do this. This is, we actually do this in a trifold situation. This is one of my evaluation documents as I work with as I work with our Board of Regents for my performance and those kinds of things. The page 3 there, if I can get you to turn it to this page right here, has some stats that I'd like to share with you there. What we do is we prepare this document, and then I prepare a pretty detailed letter about what happened last year, what's going to happen next year, what I anticipate, and those sorts of things. And then we try to put stories and associate all the great things happening at the university with the letter and sort of tie it all together that way. This particular page that is listed as transforming the region, when I went to the Panhandle, there was a lot of expectations and a lot of excitement about what we were going to do and where we were going to go. I've been at Oklahoma Panhandle State now for 5 years, and all the board wanted me to do was 3 things, Representative. I want you to try this on as a job description. All they wanted me to do was modernize a campus that literally had not been touched since the 60s. All they wanted me to do was make the university sustainable, which it had not been done, or in which it had not been in the last 20 years. And then they wanted, Chairman Marbury, they wanted me to transform the region. So try that on as a job description, right? And so what you do is you give people reasons to choose, and you make everybody understand that you're a resource. If they'll come to you, you will help them. This facility helped me to do that. In the 5 years, we are the highest ranking university by U.S. News and World Report. We broke the top 25 this year. We're very excited. All-time highs in fundraising, all-time highs in enrollment, and all-time highs in graduation rates. The thing that I think is the most important is we have taken our scholarship allocation, mostly through private fundraising, also through more qualifications for federal financial aid, but we now award about $5 million a year in scholarships. It was about 1.5, and so money is a barrier. And so what you have to do is be able to get people the resources that they need to move forward. They will come for a reason. They will stay if they have the resources that they need. The other thing that I think is that I'm very, very proud of on this list here, 26 national champions, 7 team champions. We now have a national championship in shooting sports, so I'm pretty pumped about that. We recently had our accreditation visit and were awarded 10 years on the open pathway, which is good as it could possibly get. When I arrived, Panhandle State was not in a position to do those kinds of things. And so we are very blessed by that experience and where we are right now. We are Oklahoma's first and only Hispanic serving institution, with about 27% of our students being of Hispanic heritage and culture. We are, as you can see by the map there, we are closer to 4 other states. Like I said, we have alumni in all 50 states and 26 countries, and we work really hard at connecting with them. I wanted to let you know that because I would say 1 out of every 4 alumni that I connect with that hasn't come says, tell me about the shooting range. So we're really on to something that people are interested in. And then finally, our male and female population. When I arrived, there were 954 students there this year. These are last year's numbers. This year we'll top out at about 1,700 students. Giving people reasons, and what you've done for us has helped me to transform the region and make it sustainable. The last thing, because graduation got canceled last year, for all of our honors grads, I jumped in the truck, put about 4,000 miles on the truck, drove around. I did have to take 2 flights because I'm not driving to Oregon. But I jumped in the truck, and for all of our honors grads, we did the Publishers Clearinghouse surprise, where I would show up and we would present them with their diplomas. It's that kind of personal touch that is the reason we're growing as all of this goes forward. I'm happy to answer any questions about the shooting range, the university. We've got great things going on, and I'm honored to be here, so thank you very much. Yes, sir. Today. I'm going back. No, I'm serious, anytime. Yeah?
But now, what you just said, President, I just visited Nino last weekend.
Oh.
I'm not there, I'm Southeastern.
I worked there for a while, yeah.
All the small stuff. Just getting people involved. The last president of Southeastern, when I go see him, we went to the cafeteria and they involved with the kids things so much. Both colleges I
Right.
It's just that's very awesome, and I very much want to come visit by all means, and I'll get.
Yeah.
I'm running,
Okay.
very dear to the shooting thing. But I have a lot of kids, when we had the state shoot this year, he had 6 kids walk by his office with the window carrying shotguns. He said, that's not too many places in our part of the world to even allow that. Gun safety, I think, taught in every school, even, because this, they don't know what a gun will do. They do know what a gun will do, and maybe they won't pick it up.
You bet.
Kind of like driver ed, every driver ed class should be stopped at the top of the standard of anybody. God bless you, thank you very much, and like I said, whatever I can do, please come by and see me and visit with me.
You bet. I would be happy to do that. Thank you for your comments. We're honored by them. Thank you.
A short drive from Valiant to Goodwill.
It's nothing for a cowboy, is it? Yep.
Tim, when was it fully operational? When did you?
So we will be fully operational June 1. And so the hours, I think I forgot that, I apologize. So the hours will be Tuesday 1 to 7, Thursday 1 to 7. Wednesdays are as bad as sacred in the Panhandle as there ever was. So we're not going to open on Wednesdays. Saturday 8 to dark, and Sunday 12 to dark, essentially.
Do you have annual memberships too, or do you just?
So
pay
the way I think we're going to be able to, do this is that it will be free to people who are members of the No Man's Land Gun Club, because they pay memberships for them. And then I'm working on some things for anybody at 18. It'll be free for them to come and shoot that way. So the annual membership is something that we were cautioned to move away from and tried to stay with the daily rate that way. And so the way it works now is if they join the No Man's Land Gun Club, then they can essentially get an annual membership. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I feel like
how,
I'm just
how does
kind of
the
fumbling.
how's the facility administered? In other words, is it the college that does it, or have you gotten a third party to do it, or how do you manage that?
So it's actually run, we have 2 full-time staff members and a maintenance person dedicated to the facility. And then it is run, hourly wise, with students that are on the shooting sports team that way. And then our coaches take turns depending on sort of high yield times and those sorts of things.
Those other colleges that come down and use your facility, is it because they don't have one, or they don't have one as nice as you have, or why do you think they're coming down to use you?
They typically do not have one. And when you show up to our facility, it's turnkey and it's all there. And so in talking with a couple of the coaches that brought them down, what they shared with me is they try to make that, hey, if we practice in the pasture the way we normally do at Midland or someplace like that, if we do really well and everybody shows up and we've got good attendance and everybody's working on what I asked them to work on, we'll take a trip up to Panhandle. And they go, oh, I love that facility. So it becomes an incentive for those institutions.
One last question: what caliber was the rifle that you shot your 1,000?
It was one that I had not heard of, but they called it a 206 Spicer, and it was a little bitty one. And the rifle didn't kick at all, even though it had a barrel that would hit that door from here. But it was some sort of a special load. They actually showed it in the video. It was a little bitty short bullet with a very long tip on it. Yes, sir.
Congratulations on what you've done, not just on the shooting range, but on all of it. I was one who was out there 2 or 3 years before you came, and have seen a tremendous transition in the Panhandle. I think your idea of going to the things that you do well and getting rid of the peripheral items bodes well in many cases. Looks to me like that you can be to Oklahoma and the shooting sports what Gonzaga has been to basketball.
I hope so.
A small school, a long ways from anywhere, that is gaining really national prominence. Congratulations on what you've done.
Thank you very much. I wanted to elaborate on something that Lance said. The person who got me involved in this, it was very early on a Saturday morning. I'd just been named, and I got a call from my friend Bill Brewster, who said, hey, I know you built a range out there at Connors where you were prior to coming to Panhandle. Would you be interested in doing something out where you are now? And that began the conversation, and then I met you, and we went from there. And so he was really the one that got us started on all of that.
I meant to mention, he built a range at Connors, a small school over in eastern Oklahoma, and the 4-H FFA groups all used it, and they used it as a recruitment tool for Connors as well. And you had darn good growth at Connors during that time as well. Shooting ranges, opportunity to learn these things can be immensely important to colleges and universities, and you carried that with you on out to Panhandle, and it's worked well.
Sure, thank you.
Have other colleges reached out to you to say, hey, how'd you do this? And
Oh, yeah.
can you help us do one?
Yeah,
for
a
us?
bunch of bandwagoners. Yeah, absolutely. So, where my friend Director Strong is from, a buddy of mine that is now retiring, Randy Butler, I think has reached out to you and is looking at doing that at Southwestern Oklahoma State University. Everybody asks about how to do it. It's a little bit. It's a little bit like the ranching deal. It's real romantic from the distance, but it's the details that make it work. And what I've noticed is there are very few people who are willing to put the work in and do the planning and do all the things it takes to make it work that way. But we would actually, what I'd love to do is have some sort of an Oklahoma League. I think that'd be great. It'd be similar to a conference situation, and it would put us on the map in a way that would be positive for safe and responsible gun ownership. And I'm telling you, if they shoot at the range, they're going to go pheasant hunting. Deer season's important to them, those kinds of things.
Well, and to that end, again, Dr. Fulton gets a ton of credit for being a university president that was actually willing to see it through, because he's right. There are several that have approached us, and of course we're willing to bend over backwards, and we've got plenty of grant funding available to do it. But when you start talking through the actual particulars, what it's going to take to get it done, some of the liabilities that are involved, there are a lot of presidents that start running away really fast, and I'm not going to name names either, but there's only one that's actually got one on the ground now, and that's this guy. So congrats, and thank you for you're willing to step out there and take a little bit of risk to do something great for all of us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here today. Thank you very much.
Dr. Fulton, the only thing I can think that you may need out there that I didn't see is trees. And now you have a new friend in Representative Dempsey, which comes from green country in southeast Oklahoma. I'm sure he'd load you up a truckload of trees and bring you out there. So, a great presentation. Thank you for your comments, Representative Dempsey. Okay, next item, the presentation, consideration, vote to approve and take other action on a donation of $7,250 from the Southeast chapter, from the Central Oklahoma chapter of Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever, Laura McIver and her group. I'll turn it over to you, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Director Strong, as Laura's working her way up here, we heard Tim mention how hard it was to raise funds during a COVID year. And I just publicly want to acknowledge Laura and Quail Forever, Pheasant Forever. It's been a while since we've got a donation, but we're glad to have it, and we appreciate, you finding ways, you and your chapters finding ways to continue partnering with us, working towards the mission. So, Laura?
Hello, how are you? How is everybody today? I'm going to call up Troy Ellefson to introduce him as the new president for the Central Oklahoma 89er chapter. So he can stand up here with me. And James, of course, is representing, he actually represents a lot of chapters because he participates in just about everything that I do. So anyway, thank you, James. So come on up, Troy. So just wanted to, first, before to alluding to your comments there, we have a saying in our organization, the mission doesn't stop. Habitat doesn't stop. Things don't stop growing. No matter what, that is an ongoing mission, no matter what. And my chapters took that to heart this last year. I can't say that it was easy. I'll be honest with you. It was not an easy year last year when it came to fundraising. However, we were strategic. We planned and went around some of these spikes that we had in cases for COVID and managed to pull off about 3/4 of our banquets this last year. And all of them had record-breaking attendance, which was phenomenal. I'm still shocked about that. So, I'm so proud of the chapters because our stats for the previous year, 2020, mind you, this is before any of the work that they're going to be doing from this year's work. We have a top 10 chapters for Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. And I am so proud to say that out of 185 chapters across the United States, across 31 states, we have a number of chapters who hit that top 10. I'm so excited. I love it. So, talking about shooting teams, our North Fork chapter sponsors 6 shooting teams, okay? And they were in the top 10 for education and outreach, which includes the shooting teams. So, for nesting cover acres and for top 10 chapters and maintenance acres, we had the Cherokee Strip chapter, Oklahoma City, the Central Oklahoma chapter, Southeastern Oklahoma chapter, and the North Fork chapter, who are all ranked across the United States in the top 10. So the mission doesn't stop. They're passionate like I am. They're habitat warriors, they really are. So when you are needing help on kind of helping for some advocacy, when I put the call out, they hear and they respond because they are passionate, because they care. So thank you and the great partnership that we have. So with that, we'll lead right into the donations. So the first donation is actually for $7,250 for actually for 3 WMAs. So that's going to be for James Collins, Atoka, and McGee Creek WMAs, all 3 in the southeast, which is pretty cool. This is for a disc, helping with a 4-wheeler and fire suppression skid unit and accessories. All of that combined is a total of $29,000. You'll get back in your 3-to-1 match, okay? So that totals a $29,000 project for this contribution. So really excited about that. And then an ongoing project, Cross Tempers, actually was one that started years ago for an original donation, and that chapter has claimed Cross Timbers as their WMA for continuing to help them out. And so in conjunction with that, the $2,000 that they are donating is for to help pay for the ATV. And again, that ATV is critical. This is something that they didn't used to want to buy things like ATVs or help purchase these, but that has totally changed in the world of prescribed fire, and understanding how important they are and how much they're really abused and used when it comes to needing that. And so you're starting to see your equipment break down, and so we're trying to help step up and make sure that you continue fire on the ground. So anyway, with that, that's a total of $9,250 that we are donating for all kinds of work. So that's
Awesome.
it. Did you want to say anything? Nope.
Covered it there. Go ahead, Bill.
Thank you. What's that? Any questions?
Motion to accept. Second. Other discussion?
You're welcome. Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Mr. Brewster? Mr. Barwick? Mr. Gaddis? Mr. Dillingham? Mr. Holder? Mr. Mabry?
Aye.
Now, we're using Central Oklahoma's big check, but it is for representing both chapters. So, my hat's off, the Southeastern Oklahoma chapter really had a struggle getting off the ground. And now we have but they're doing good now, and they've got an awesome committee. And talk about Habitat Warriors, man, they're after it. They want to do as much as they can in the southeast. Kiamichi, I know, is going to be the same way. So, and it's a pleasure to see you, Representative Dempsey, again. So.
Thank you, Laura, for that very nice donation. Appreciate that. Next on the agenda will be an update on 2020 deer season. Bill Dinkins. Bill?
Thank you, sir. So in your packet, you should have got a copy of the dates for the season, as well as a graphic that Jerry Shaw and Dallas Barber and staff put together. Just real briefly, you know, we've been talking about our record deer harvest this past year, and it was quite an accomplishment. And as you can see, Jerry has put several nuggets there, highlights. I won't go through all of them, but with the new overall harvest record being at the top, 126,290 deer taken this past year. The big news, I guess, from a management standpoint was 42% antlerless, which was our highest since 2009. If you remember, a year or so ago, I was presenting a resolution to you all to consider. We were running about 36% antlerless harvest. And so through staff's discussions and recommendations, I brought a resolution last year where we really focused on antlers, increasing antlerless days. We expanded our holiday antlerless season and bag limits. So safe to say that it worked. You know, our hunters responded and did their part. So you can read over those numbers, and probably in the future, once the big game report is finalized, we can probably bring back a little more detailed presentation to you. But since Jerry and them were able to get this number, I just wanted to get it to you as soon as possible. And lead into the actual meat of the agenda item is the antlerless resolution. So basically, riding the wave of that success, y'all passed a continuing resolution, and I ran this by Clayton, and since the only adjustments will be for the calendar roll, calendar day, a one-day change, you don't have to formally vote on a new resolution, but staff's recommendation is that no changes to the antlerless days. We continue them, follow up on last year's success, hopefully, and see where that takes us. So you can see the actual resolution dates there for all the different zones. And like I said, there's nothing changed there except for the calendar dates. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to address them.
How did that compare to last year, or the year before?
Talking about total harvest, or?
Yeah, that and the percentage.
Yeah, so it was, like I said, 36, 37%.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it went up to 42% this year. And obviously, as we talked about with COVID, the participation went up quite a bit as well. But to that end, we're thankful that they were focused on taking some of those antlerless deer to help us manage the herd, so.
Bill, how does that WMA total compare?
So it's up, roughly 19% from last year. Last year's total for WMAs was 6,834. And as you can see over there on the far right column, 8,185, which is about 6.5% of the total harvest, which is right in line. It was 6.4% last year, so.
Bill, is your DMAP participation consistent, or is it going up or down? Sportsman or?
So it runs about 80 to 90 participants, almost 500,000 acres. And I think that's a pretty good average, isn't it, Jerry?
Pretty good average. Commissioner, we've kind of put a little bit more pressure on some of our DMAP operators to make sure that they're getting us the information. As a result, a lot of them are looking at our more liberalized campus season and realizing that we now offer the opportunity that when the DMAP program was first brought forward, was for excess dough days and for bonus tier. Now that we've got bag limit set where required on so many properties, they don't rely on those excess days or bags to meet their quota. We've had a few of the smaller properties drop off, but our average is held pretty well the same in our acreage. The program is doing quite well. The folks that are working the program is working.
Okay. Is the antlerless, participation, the hunt that we have towards the end of December, have those antlerless numbers gone up?
Yes, participation last year during COVID,
Yeah.
I forget what the actual number is, I had it. But it went up substantially.
Yeah.
In that holiday campus season, I believe is the one you're referring to. We had a lot more participation.
That's a good activity, yeah.
We wrote promoted it to our CD at that time.
Yeah. It's a very good activity, because it's generally when the season's kind of wrapped up for most of the guys that are out, or gals are out trying to shoot those big bucks, so it gives an opportunity for friends and family to get together at that particular season, and, seems like it's a great opportunity for many of our sportsmen, so, good, thank you. Any other questions of Bill?
Well, like I said, since that was a continuing resolution that y'all passed last May, there's nothing to vote on today.
Okay,
That was just more of an information update item.
okay. All right. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is update on the Oklahoma Land Access Program. Bill and Jeff.
Yes, sir. At your request, Chairman Mabry, you asked for a OLAP update on where the program stands right now, how much it's being utilized, and Jeff Tibbetts, our Oklahoma Land Access Program biologist / coordinator, is here to present a little PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you, Bill. So the Oklahoma Land Access Program is a public access program funded by a VPA grant through the Farm Bill. The primary goal is to encourage landowners to open land for public recreational access. We received the first grant for $2.25 million in March of 2016. The program opened in 2017. Myself and a technician, we established lease rates and hunting potential, and then evaluate and enroll the properties. We're currently at 91,000 acres of hunting access, about 59 surface acres of fishing access, 5 miles of stream access, and 240 acres of wildlife viewing access. This shows the program growth. We grew very quickly, very rapidly the first 1 or 2 years of the program, and COVID did slow us down a little bit, being able to meet with landowners, but we're still growing the program. We have properties from pine to prairie throughout the state. We have pretty much all ecosystem types. The lands are typically in some form of production, often ranching, and some of the agricultural land is, we really try to get sorghum if we can. We received a new Farm Bill grant for the full $3 million we asked for in March of 2020. That grant went to effect October 1, and it expires at the end of September in 2023. The goals for this are to establish and expand close-to-home opportunities with a new limited access system. Also, we secured federal funding for a second OLAP technician, and the USDA wants us to lease WRP wetland easements. We're simplifying the program just a little bit going forward and updating the sign accordingly. We're going to have the one public access option, the white sign that's pretty much most of the 91,000 acres, and the new yellow sign for the limited access. This is currently in development. It will ideally use the existing Go Outdoor systems that's administered by Brant. This has a lot of benefits. It's not a new system that hunters or our law enforcement division has to become familiar with. We can integrate this directly with the existing resources. This will encourage enrollments in close to metro areas. There is a perception from landowners that the amount of people accessing the property needs to be controlled, and that discourages enrollments. So this will require an online registration from hunters, and we can specify the number of hunters or the type of access allowed on each property. The reality is this probably won't decrease use tremendously because there's only so many places to park in close to metro areas. This will also increase the potential for rifle opportunities. Since a lot of these properties do have cattle, that's been a very frequent request from landowners for any sort of rifle opportunity. The new grant does require us to target or to enroll 1,000 acres of WRP. We currently have 312 acres, and we're collaborating with NRCS staff throughout the state to meet and exceed that goal. Back in 2019, we installed voluntary check-in boxes at 13 tracks to monitor utilization of each property. We had to be selective which properties we enrolled because not every property had a pinch point where we could collect that data. We collected 984 survey cards from 13 tracks. These represent a bare minimum because for a variety of reasons, some hunters don't want to fill out check-in cards. The Logan County property got particularly utilized and justifies further close to home enrollments. Betsy York with the Game Harvest Survey asked questions in 2017 and 2020 about OLAP utilization, and it's been consistent that 5% of active hunters use OLAP, which represents 16,000 resident hunters. I don't think we have a way to track the non-resident hunters currently, but I'm working with our human dimension specialist to look into that. And the ECHAC data shows that at least 162 deer were harvested on OLAP this last year. On the OLAP webpage, we have a variety of digital resources. The digital maps have been viewed just short of 500,000 times since 2017. We have an OLAP newsletter that I send out as needed that has about 5,200 subscribers on it. And we also have an OLAP story map, which is a virtual tour. It's intended to be a quick 5-minute introduction to someone who might have no idea what the OLAP is, and that's been viewed about 50,000 times. And I do want to specify that every property has its own pros and cons. Some properties are good for deer, some properties are good for dove, etc. And here's a few highlights from each of these properties. The hunter on the lower left had a good day upland bird hunting. We get utilized by quite a few serious bow hunters, and we have some pretty good bow hunting opportunity. I'm not at liberty to disclose the people or locations, or else I won't get these texts anymore. But we have got some pretty solid bow hunting opportunities in the program. Upland hunting, also we're leasing a lot of land around the Turpin and Forgan area, which is kind of just south of Liberal, Kansas, so that has some pretty good pheasant opportunities and the CRP there. And there's a few blue quail out in the Boise City area. This gentleman's active Air Force, and he harvested 2 OLAP bucks on the same property, and the landowner went out of his way to help him and develop a relationship with him. So there's a lot of really cool stories like that between the landowners helping the hunters and getting to know each other, which I didn't expect when we started this program. Turkey, I hesitate to say, but we have some really good turkey spots in the program. The bottom left picture is actually from a professor at OSU, so it was really cool to see that he's gotten turkeys twice, 2 years in a row, and he taught me a lot of those courses that I use in this job. Pronghorn archery, that's possibly the most difficult hunt in the state, but it has happened. People have gotten a few pronghorns with bows on OLAP. And we're also open to the state draw folks, which we get 5 or 6 at least state draw pronghorn shot with rifles. The paddlefish opportunity up in Kay County is it's utilized quite a bit. The gentleman on the bottom left drove from Georgia to come use this property. And we don't get a lot of feedback about, a lot of photos about dove, but this is one of my favorite, is that this young man shot his first and second ever dove on OLAP. We do get utilized for dove hunting quite a bit. I just don't get, those text messages don't come in like the bow hunting text. I would like to acknowledge the entire department. The OLAP team is just 2 people, but the reality is it's a department-wide program. Law enforcement has been tremendously helpful for us. CNE, fisheries, we've gotten a lot of help from everyone throughout the agency, and I'm very, very grateful for it. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, good work. I was just saying, good work.
Oh, yeah, excellent work. Jeff, have you had too many or very many landowner-hunter conflicts, or is that pretty well ironed out now, or what?
We had it's usually with a neighbor. Usually it's neighbors that might not approve of enrollment. The landowners and hunter conflict, usually that's extremely minimal, and it's ironed out when the landowner informs the hunter, I have the right to deny access, and that stops it right in its tracks. In eastern Oklahoma, there's been a few issues with maybe neighbors not being happy, but the limited access will address that and minimize that sort of conflict. Yes.
Are you trying to get more land?
Yes, we had some in northern Logan County, and for similar reasons, we lost those properties, and I've kept it in my back pocket. I've been talking with that landowner to get them back in as limited access.
Jeff? Oh, go ahead.
What's a typical lease price? I think he asked, right?
It varies quite a bit. It's $2 to $20 an acre. The Panhandle is obviously quite a bit cheaper than something near Oklahoma City. For comparison, some of the school land in Oklahoma, Logan County, that has no farming or ranching opportunity on it can lease for $20, $30 an acre. So it gets pretty expensive the closer you get to the metro, and in the literature, it's pretty correlated to real estate. The hunting lease rates are correlated to just the real estate market.
Looking at them, especially you'd have a lot more participation closer to the metro, especially.
The yellow limited access signs will address that. We had a lot of interest from close to metro, and it tends to drop off when they realize they couldn't regulate the amount of people. I don't know if the concern is a reality, but that's the perception, and we're not alone in this. Kansas implemented the IWEHA to get lands near Wichita, Kansas City. Every state has this issue with close to home. Illinois is fully limited access. I don't think they have any just public access.
So the idea with that is if there's the landowner wants it limited to 20 people a day, let's just say, then you have to register online and get approved to go hunt it that day, and once it gets to 20, everybody else gets declined. Is that kind of the concept?
Yes, it'll be through the Go Outdoors system, where there's a check-in page using their existing hunter ID number or CID, and law enforcement can use that to see who is checked in, who ought to be there, who shouldn't be.
Great. Yeah, maybe that'll help us, because to this question and concerns we've talked about internally a lot, man, why can't we get more close to home hunting areas, like our close to home fishing areas? And I know it's just been a challenge. Prices are through the roof, but that access, being overrun by people, is the biggest concern. So I guess maybe this is the way to address it. And then didn't you also, either your new HIP grant or maybe another grant you went after, get something that will really help us focus on closer to metro area signups. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's what the new VPA grant was to help us develop and grow the new limited access system.
Okay, good. All right, thanks.
And I've got one more. Typical term on the leases are they all the same, or?
They're for the life of the grant, so they'll expire in 2023,
Okay.
just to keep it,
Pretty much across
everybody
the-
has a start and stop date.
Gotcha, okay.
But the contract with the landowner, they have an out clause, right? If things go bad, like 30 days out or something like that?
They have to give us 2 weeks' notice because we may not be able to drop everything and go pull signs. The only withdrawals we've had have been because land has been sold. It's never been because of a hunter, anything a hunter did.
Good.
But it can be ended at any time by the department or the landowner, but it's always been because the land has been sold.
Jeff, is my understanding, whether it's facts or not, I don't know, but up in Kansas, I hear that their walk-in hunting area acreage has decreased over the past couple of years. And they say the reason being is that, and I've hunted walk-in hunting areas in Kansas, and some of them are really good, is that these hunters that hunt it find out how good it is. They go back to the landowner and say, how much is the state paying you an acre for this? I'll pay you X amount. And so there's been, I think, quite a bit of land that's not in that walk-in hunting area just for that reason. So what we're doing is trying to make lands available for the public to hunt. And a hunter goes out there and hunts it. If he's real successful, whether it's quail or deer, then he goes and talks to the landowner and cuts his own deal and then cuts us out of the lease program. Have you faced any of that yet that you know of?
We haven't faced that, but we've offered lease rates to people that have been declined. And
Yeah.
so we're not, they're not all too much.
Yeah.
The lease rate can't be too high if they walk away. So we've had, and that's what happens a lot around Oklahoma City, is we were offering $10 to $20 an acre. At 80 acres, 160 acres, the per acre rate doesn't matter. It's, I'll lease it to someone for $5,000 a year. And they don't really think of it in terms of per acre. So we've ran into that, and that's where that limited access will help out quite a bit. It's the same with wetlands. It's not really a per acre rate. They just look at it as the whole. We haven't lost any land to other hunters.
Okay. Well, it's a very good program out there where I have some property. There's that, I think 640 acres, about a half mile from my place, and it's really good hunting. But I'm surprised more hunters aren't out there because there are good turkey and quail and deer over those places. So, but good information, and thank you for putting that together.
Thank you.
Any other questions, anybody?
Good stuff, Jeff, thanks.
Thank you very much, appreciate that information. Item number 14 is the appointment of a nominating committee for fiscal year 2022. I've talked with John Zelps, he's not here today. I asked him to chair that committee again. He agreed to do that. He'll get with some commissioners and meet on the nominations for fiscal year 22. He'll present that to us in the June meeting. So that's where we stand on that particular issue. On item number 15, under new business, discussion of any matter not known about which could not have been reasonably foreseen 24 hours prior to the scheduled meeting. Not any information? Nope. The next meeting of the commission will be June 7th, 9 a.m., Oklahoma City, at the ODWC headquarters. There'll be no further business. The meeting is adjourned. All right.
Oh, commissioners,
Fishing, hunting, wildlife management, resource protection, habitat conservation, public outreach, and education.
It's what we do.
It's what we live for.
Simply put, conserving wildlife literally means the wise use of wildlife. And that's at the root of everything we do. Oklahoma is one of the most species-diverse states in the nation. Making sure opportunities exist for hunters, anglers, and all those who appreciate wildlife is not only our job.
It's our passion.
We are your Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. From sunup to sundown, and sometimes all night long. The employees of our agency are relentless in their dedication to a job well done. The science behind wildlife conservation is constantly evolving, and our biologists are leading the way with groundbreaking and cutting-edge techniques that the entire scientific community benefits from. If that's not enough to make you proud, then consider this. We've been doing all this since our agency's birth in 1909, without using a dime of taxpayer money. That's because the Wildlife Department is designed as a user-pay, user-benefit agency. It's sportsmen and wildlife enthusiasts who pay the bill for wildlife conservation in Oklahoma. Revenue from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses make up the majority of the agency's budget. There's also another unique way that outdoorsmen contribute financially. Each time someone buys a gun, ammunition, fishing equipment, or fuel for their boat, a small portion of the tax they pay at the register is used for wildlife conservation. But hunters and anglers don't just contribute financially. A long time ago, we recognized that sportsmen are our most effective management tool. Shaping regulations and making sure everyone complies to them has played a major role in bringing many species back from the brink of extinction to unimaginable numbers